name is Dwayne Fitzsimons. I'm a local storyteller and tour guide. I guide people around the local area, explaining its kind of significant cultural heritage, but also its really deep kind of patrician and Christian heritage. So the Abbey is quite remarkable because it's the building we see today was built in about 1180, and it was one of the first Gothic buildings built on the island of Ireland. It was built by a man named John de Courcy. So the two Gothic buildings given as the first are here and Grey Abbey. And Grey Abbey was also built by the de Courcys, but it was built by John's wife, Africa. Africa built that as a kind of way of thanksgiving for a safe journey through a storm when they landed at the shore at Grey Abbey, and they founded a Cistercian Abbey there. The Abbey was actually constructed on the site of an earlier Abbey. So there was an Abbey on this site in the year 1002, which was raided by the Danes. But the Abbey that we see today was built in 1180 by John de Courcy in the Gothic style. And it was probably the most significant building in this area at that time. People would be living in very rudimentary mud cabins, thatched everything. This building was slated. It had stained glass windows. It had very tall windows. For the scale of it, the building is quite impressive, but the reason it was built is a lot darker. So when John de Courcy arrived in Ireland, he was on an expedition to Dublin, and he had in the back of his mind he was going to go north because he was from Yorkshire and knew the lay of the land up in these parts because of journeys back and forth between people in Yorkshire and our people in Cumbria and people in the north of Ireland anyway. So he knew there was significance in this area, and he marched north and captured Downpatrick. On the way to Downpatrick, one abbey wouldn't give him hospitality, so he destroyed it. So to make penance for that, and also the fact that he killed so many men and women in Downpatrick, he asked that this abbey was built, and it was there dedicated to Mary, who was there to intercede for him to get him into heaven. So it was a way of him paying penance, and that's the only reason it stands today in kind of the grand. Yep. Okay. So the building that I'm stood in now is the well. So the Inch actually is from the Irish Inish, which means island, and this would have been an island on the shores of Strangford Lough. So believe it or not, what's behind was formerly a shore of Strangford Lough. Actually, if you look across, the kind of very low brown that you see across there, that's all foreshore. So the well is a very important building because it's, you can see, one of the light sources for monastery. Okay, so among some of the buildings that are around here, this one that we're stood in now is the kitchen. So just behind is what was often for making bread in. These were very self-sustained kind of communities that lived here. People didn't come to visit. They grew everything from what they could find. They would fish in the waters just beneath us. And they were actually vegetarians, obviously eating fish as well. But remarkably, when they did any archaeological digs here, they came across some deer's bones. So it was quite obvious that they didn't count venison as meat. We're kind of just off to the left-hand side of the main crossing of the original abbey. What it was used for was a home for the Cistercian order, and they were an exclusively male order, and they very much lived on their own. They didn't interact with people around them, and in the 1300s we had the Black Death going through communities in Ireland. Didn't distinguish between those of religious orders or those just of the lay faith. And when that happened, part of the abbey was then shrunk down to show the need that there was no need for a larger kind of building anymore. But what that leaves is kind of these fascinating kind of offshoots within the abbey. So just behind me we've got the remnants of a spiral staircase which probably went up into a choir which came across this wall just directly behind me. So the two niches just behind me would have originally been altars which would have been dedicated to lesser saints. So the main dedication of the abbey was to St Mary, who was there to intercede with John de Courcy to get him into heaven for all the blood that he spilt. But these two would have been smaller chapels that you would have called them. If you look in the 1830s into the Dublin penny journals, where you get the first kind of lithographs of Irish kind of cultural landscape, there's one of Inch Abbey which actually shows that people in the 1800s had actually built a house in the ruins that are here. It was a kind of very rudimentary thatched kind of cottage. still intact in the building. But in some instances, the decorative stone you can find in the most random places, like in the pillars of houses. So if you go out to the Coil, there's a lovely kind of pillar at one of the houses out there, which has the top capital of a pilaster. It also has a carved bishop's head, which was taken from this abbey as well. So, and I think as well as that, there's some kind of strange animal with like a foliated kind of tail. I think it might be a lion or a lamb, I'm not too sure. So after the abbey was dissolved and the lands were given over to the Maxwell family, they built a house just on a hill behind there. So as you come into the site today, you'll pass their original gate lodge. So that you're going back to the 1600s here, and they've kind of lived on the site ever since that. So the legacy of this abbey is quite remarkable because there's a very strong tradition of St Patrick in this area. I mentioned that John de Courcy had come here. He rebuilt the abbey as a big grand statement, but he also employed a monk called Jocelyn, they were brought over from Furness, but Jocelyn was employed by John de Courcy to write the life of St Patrick. And if you ever read through Jocelyn's account of the life of St Patrick, everything is very much geographically tied to the area of Downpatrick in terms of the places given where the story unfolds. But remarkably, there is no account of the river snakes on the island of Ireland, but that legend that Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland was written here in this building by Jocelyn. And the reason that Jocelyn did the writing of the life of St Patrick was really to appease John de Courcy and reassert his kind of authority over the land and the people that lived here. And in doing that, he gave them a reason to celebrate their culture and their heritage while bringing in a new form of religious order into these parts. So that really is the outstanding legacy of the abbey.